All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Well, it's morning where I am at, and I'm here to have a brief chat with Dr. Jake Smith. Hi, Jake, and thank you for your time. And
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be chatting with you.
yes, yes, exactly. So I have a list of questions that I really want to ask you, and that's why I might look on a different screen that I have. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Could you introduce yourself and maybe share a fun or unexpected fact about you that very few people know of?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Jake. I'm a ag economist. My focus is on industrial organization, and I kind of like a special interest in innovation and new technologies, and how those kind of impact production and environmental outcomes and things like that as well. Um, So outside of work, I spend a lot of family time with my wife Lauren, and we have a 2-year-old son Graham. So that keeps me pretty busy these days. Something kind of more unexpected than that, I think. Back in college, I was a part of a team that we planned and like ran. Game of knockout basketball. So it's when you have like two basketballs and like one person tries to knock out the person in front of them by making it before the person in front of them makes theirs. And so we set the Guinness World Record for the largest game of knockout basketball with this group I had in college. And I think we had like about 500 people participating in one game of knockout. And so it was this
Are
big
you
event that we put
serious?
on. Yeah.
Oh my
So
God, I
yeah.
you actually have a Guinness World Record?
I don't think we have it anymore. I was trying to look it
That's
up.
okay.
I think someone broke it like a couple years after we did it, but for a short time there, we owned the record.
Oh man, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Awesome. Great, great.
yep.
So my next question for you is that, what drew you to the field of industrial organization? Was there like a moment, a person, or an experience that sparked your interest?
Yeah, so for me, so after college, I had a friend from my engineering program. I was a mechanical engineer in college, and he started working on some coding stuff, and he actually had this idea for a startup, and he asked if I wanted to join him. And his idea was to make software for college intramural sports programs to kind of just be like a platform to run their whole program, because he had been like an intramural ref throughout college and had kind of seen how inefficient some of the things were. And he's like, hey, like we can kind of teach ourselves to code. We can build this software. We can see if there's a market for it. And so I did that with him for a couple years after college. And ultimately, like we couldn't really find a market for our product that we were building. But that sort of just sparked this idea in me of being really interested in how new technologies kind of impact the economy, and it made me really like realize it's not necessarily about the technology itself. Like the technology we had was obviously better than what people were doing before, because before they were just, it was like they'd have like a stack of papers this high that they'd have to input manually into Excel, and we were trying to just automate all of that. But it just, even though the technology was better, we didn't have that kind of economic reason for them. We weren't saving them enough money and things like that. And so, yeah, it just kind of got me really interested in, this idea of how do new innovations, new technologies actually, get adopted and impact the economy. Um, because it isn't just about the technology, it's about the economics of it all. And so that kind of like just planted this seed for me. And so at that time, was still a ways away from going into grad school. I, was just out working, doing technology, software related stuff, but really just kept thinking about this idea of like the economics of it. And so finally, that kind of led me to go back to grad school. And I just was just continuing to be just interested in this question. And once I got to grad school, I realized I was just kind of more interested in the broader question of, firm behavior. And that's a lot of what industrial organization is. It's just,
That's right.
um, yeah, how are these firms behaving, and what what are the decisions they're making. And then, I was kind of drawn to it in a ag economics context because I grew up in a small town in Iowa. And so I just, always felt that, these questions of firm behavior in the ag sector, especially, or like ag related sectors, have big impacts on the economies of the rural areas and small towns like where I grew up.
That's right.
And so, that's kind of just what drove my interest to that area.
Isn't it strange, how we stumble upon the things that we do, and I don't know, in some way it's so defined by, where we live or where we grew up, who we interacted with. So
Yeah.
yeah, and Jake, I did not know that you also had an engineering background. So for all those people, who are, watching this video, we don't know how we arrive to
Yeah.
where we are at this point of time from a disciplinary perspective. So
Yeah.
great, at this, my next question for you is that is there an interesting project that you're currently working on that you can tell us about, and what do you find very exciting about that project?
Yeah. So one of the big projects I've spent a lot of time on recently has been working on a model of buyer power in the beef packing industry. So we're looking at the beef packers that are processing cattle into beef, um, and looking at the buyer power they have when they are purchasing cattle from feedlots. And so that's been, really interesting and exciting for me, just because it's kind of been like a hot topic. There's been news stories, stuff in the popular press. There's been uh, proposals in Congress to deal with this buyer power in this industry. People, have just been talking about the market power that these big beef packers have, and how big is that market power? How do we deal with it? What are policies, et cetera? And so just having that relevance to these real world discussions has made it interesting for me. And just seeing it as a great opportunity to bring some good, like rigorous economics into the discussion, compared to, what you might see in, like I said, like the popular press or in
That's right.
Congress. And they're not always using rigorous economic thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so just trying to bring some, kind of state of the art IO models and good rigorous economics into this discussion has been just, yeah, really exciting and interesting to me. So yeah, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, just been enjoying that project a lot.
Yes, and that's something, being at, just starting out at Nebraska, our department has quite a few people working in the beef sector, and there is a, vibrant animal science department. So I think, there will be opportunities for you to find ways to collaborate with them. And as you said, bring the rigorous economics to bear upon all the decisions that producers are taking. I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you, it's clear that, this is a policy relevant, economically relevant project. Did you find something surprising, or is something new that, you were not expecting to, find out when you were working, as you work on this
Yeah.
project?
Yeah, definitely. One of the kind of unexpected things for me was, so we kind of make a calibrated structural model of the industry to kind of get like a baseline of if this industry is behaving as sort of as competitively as possible under the structure of the industry, how big is the buyer power? Like how big are the markdowns on the cattle prices that these packers are paying? And what we find is that, in this model of the industry, there is kind of moderate markdowns, there is moderate level of buyer power. But one thing that was interesting to me is that you have the top four firms in the industry that control about 85% of the processing capacity for the industry. And a lot of that is because they each own multiple plants, so that they'll have at least 3 to 6 or even like 9 plants owned by by one firm.
Hmm.
And some people have thought, well, maybe it's that concentration, the fact that these big firms own multiple plants. But in this model, we're actually able to look at how that multi-plant ownership contributes to the buyer power in the industry. And we
Ah.
see that that aspect of it actually isn't very important for the buyer power. So the fact that these big firms own multiple plants, yeah, like that contributes like a little bit to the buyer power, but it's really not much. The actual buyer power that we see in the industry is coming from other sources. And yeah, I
Mhm.
thought that was just an interesting finding because
Yeah.
you wouldn't necessarily expect that just, with what you see in the kind of raw concentration numbers of the industry or things like that.
That's right. And that's I think, that's the fun part of research, right? That you go in thinking that you have a particular conjecture, and then sometimes that holds and you are like, yay, and sometimes that doesn't hold. And that's the part of the research discovery process. So
Yep.
awesome, awesome. So, as I indicate, like I said, you've recently taken on this new position at UNL in our department. Yay. So what's one of the things that you're really looking forward to in this position?
Yeah. So for me, um,
Because you will be teaching and doing research both. I should mention that.
yeah, and actually the teaching aspect is one part that I'm really looking forward to. So I didn't do hardly any teaching throughout grad school. I was able to teach like one class at one time, but um, the teaching I did do, I enjoyed a lot, but yeah, I haven't, kind of dove into teaching as much, at least up to this point. So the teaching I'm going to be doing, I'll be doing some agribusiness management and kind of like agribusiness marketing type classes for undergrads. And I'm just really looking forward to that, to doing the teaching and especially to teaching those specific classes. Kind of like I said, before I ever even thought about grad school, way back in the day, I worked at a startup. And then after that didn't really work out, I went and I worked in a technology team, eventually working myself up to like a leadership position on that team within Wells Fargo, kind of in their like home mortgage side of things. So not ag related, obviously, but I have, kind of some real world experience doing some management and just kind of general business idea, innovation, problem solving type stuff. And I'm just really looking forward to taking that experience I have that almost feels like a past life now, but bringing that in with me into the classroom and just trying to help that inform my teaching and kind of inform the students on that. One thing I saw both in my startup and at Wells Fargo was whether you're in a small organization or a big organization, businesses need people that can solve problems and
That's
innovate.
right. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
even if you're not like inventing something new, you can still be innovating. In how you do business, the processes, the procedures that you need to do your job. There's always room for problem solving and innovating. And so I'm really looking forward to bringing those ideas to the students and just hopefully preparing them for, good problem solving, good innovative careers in what they do.
No, and that's seriously the problem solving part, right? That's the part that's going to be more and more important as we move forward in this, age of AI and who knows what. For
Yeah,
sure.
exactly.
So, I think so. My next question, you possibly answered some of it, but it would be remiss of me if I did not ask you, what do you think in the next 3 to 5 years? What kind of impact are you hoping to make, in your current position at UNL?
Yeah. So yeah, definitely a big part of it is that teaching and
Mhm.
like I said, just really trying to give the students that I teach an idea of the impact that they can have on the world through their own careers and like I said, just being problem solvers, being innovators, always trying to make things better. So that's definitely one aspect of it. I definitely also want to, have good impact with my research as well. So, just continuing to look for and research topics that I think will be important, for policymakers or decision makers, within firms or businesses, and just, do, like I said, good, rigorous economics
That's
that can
right.
help
Hmm.
inform these decisions.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, kind of my next question for you is that, one of the main, my goals from, having this conversation with you is that, someone who is like you or an early career researcher or a graduate student will watch this interview and, really take some lessons or get feedback about their own professional trajectories, right? So we often talk about trends, but I'd love to hear about growth. So is there like a challenge or weakness that you feel that you'd like to address to become a better professional, or you've already addressed or looking to address, something that you can share?
Yeah. There's a couple of things that come to mind for me. One is I think I've always been kind of bad at asking for help. I've been the kind of person where I want to solve the problems myself. I want to kind of like prove to myself that I can do it. And so a lot of times I've struggled through things for much longer than I should have, trying to, solve something myself when I could have just gone and asked someone that already knew the answer and saved myself, who knows how much time. And so that's something I'm working on, is just kind of being able to let go of, I think probably the ego side of things, that's telling me that I should try to do it myself, and yeah, just ask for help, be willing to get help and have that make my work better, instead of trying to just struggle through things myself all the time. And then kind of a related thing, is kind of just trying to like let go of my own like perfectionism, and just letting, I guess, don't let, how's that go? Don't let perfect be the enemy of good, with some
That's
stuff
it.
that I do.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, I've always, I think wanted to put it, perfect or my absolute best work out there. And I think that's a good goal to have. But, um, I think sometimes it's necessary to not be perfect with things, to let go of that perfectionism, do the best work that you can in within the constraints that are kind of binding you, and just say like, yeah, this is it. This is my work. And, I'm proud of the effort, even if it's not perfect.
You are right. No, and I tell this to my students as well as younger early career co-authors and collaborators that it's about getting the work done. It's about getting the
Mhm.
job done. And I do remember when I was in graduate school and I had people tell me that, I remember being so outraged because, like, how can you say that? I
Yeah.
need to be perfect. And now I understand why they said that, because ultimately it's about getting the job done. If you
Yep.
cannot get the job done, then you're not that effective and impactful. So
Yep.
yeah, absolutely. So you briefly talked about, you're really excited about teaching, and, how do you plan to approach these teaching responsibilities? Any strategies or philosophies that others might find helpful that, have been imparted to you by your mentors? You've kind of like picked them up along the way.
Yeah. So like I said, I don't have, much experience in teaching. So, I think a lot of it for me is just going to be learning by doing.
That's
And,
right.
I know I have a steep learning curve ahead of me. But one of the philosophies that I'm bringing into it to help guide me, that I think about a lot, is I just really try to put myself into the student's mindset in terms of what do they already know and what do they care about, and
Mm-hmm.
then how can I connect what I'm trying to teach them to what they know and what they care about, just to make it so that it actually fits into their world. Something I think about a lot is like sort of like a metaphor or a visual, is thinking about a tree of knowledge growing, and the students have their trunk and their tree however big it is, and I'm trying to give them some new leaves of knowledge, but I need to connect the leaves to the branches that they already have. I can't just throw
Awesome.
leaves at them. So,
That is
um,
great. That's so
yeah,
good. You know that I will say this, and that one thing that shows me is that you are approaching teaching from not only all the different ways that we approach it, but also from like empathy and
yeah,
having
yeah,
empathy
exactly.
for the student. I think that's very, very important because that helps them connect with you. Oh, I'll remember the tree metaphor. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
um, you know, um, in the next, 10, 15 years, what do you think will be the most exciting things to look forward to in your line of work,
Yeah. So
if
I
you had
think
a crystal ball?
I guess for me, the things I think about are the technology trends. Technology, I think, is going to continue to evolve very rapidly. I think with AI, I've seen a lot of interest and like venture capital money start to go for like indoor and like vertical farming, lab grown meats. I've seen, a lot of interest in or like plant-based meats or whatever. And so, I think these are all just technology trends that are going to continue. And like I said, there's going to be venture capital money going into them. There's going to be more and more public interest in them. And so that's going to just continue to kind of shape, the ag production sector, and then by extension shape, these, like I said, like the rural economies and stuff like that, that first sort of got me interested in kind of these IO questions. And so, yeah, I think that's going to be, the stuff that's going to shape, the next 10 or 15 years. And
Of
just
IO, you think?
what's that?
Of IO, like you like
Yeah, so yeah, I
more
think yeah, like
analysis,
with
modeling.
yeah, with that, what I do, yeah, just thinking about like the IO questions involved with
Hmm.
those new technologies. So, a lot of that can be technology adoption questions of who's adopting these technologies and why. And then just, kind of questions of innovation, and I guess the kind of the IO questions of innovation are interesting because there's sort of a trade-off between um, you want to stimulate innovation by letting firms, like have a patent, so they have like a monopoly on their product once they build it. But then, after the innovation's made, that's not the most efficient outcome because they have this monopoly. And so, just thinking through some of those issues of yeah, kind of market concentration and market power, and versus efficiency, in a context of rapid innovation
Awesome.
and learning by doing and stuff like that. So
Great, great. Yeah, all of that sounds pretty, pretty exciting to me. So, just a few more questions for you. One of the things is that, thinking back to your student days, is there kind of like a training or an experience which you are like, damn, that was a missed opportunity. I wish I had done that. And would you kind of like talk a little bit about that so that, others who are, making their way up, you know, maybe they would benefit from that?
yeah, I think for me, it's not necessarily like a certain like training or anything, but it's kind of like a mindset where I think when I was a student and probably for a little bit afterwards, I never really like fully understood the fact that like you can just do things. Like you don't have to like wait for permission or wait for the moment to feel exactly right or whatever. The I just my advice to like someone, a student or someone younger just starting the profession is just truly internalize and realize that the people that you look up to and admire to a large extent are just winging it. Like everyone's just kind of figuring this out as they go. There's never this perfect moment, and there's never, someone waiting to give you permission. Like you can truly just do things. And so just find the things you want to do and just go for it. And I think I spent a lot of time, like especially as like an undergrad, like I said, like kind of like thinking there was some permission structure or something, and not realizing that like yeah, like just do things, just go change the world, go have the impact that you want to have.
That's right. Like having that sense of agency that, if you do things and you put in the hard work, then don't wait for somebody to tell you to do it. Just do
Yeah.
it. Yes, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
so that's, that kind of brings me to the last question is that, would you be open to collaborating or connecting with others who are interested in your work? And if so, what's the best way to, contact you? And I can, fully appreciate that, we all have constraints on our time. So, if at this point of time you are, fine with your social network, professional network, that's okay too. There's really no pressure. But if anybody wanted to contact you, are you open to being contacted?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I would definitely be interested in, someone being interested in collaboration. I have some ongoing projects now, but I have some room on my plate for some more. And yeah, I would absolutely be interested for people that have ideas that kind of vibe with mine to reach out.
Yes.
I think best way to reach out to me would just be shooting me an email. It's tsmith125@unl.edu is my
What
email.
is the T?
Oh, so yeah, my first name is Timothy, but
Ah,
I've always gone by Jake. Like my actually, okay, so this is gonna be
fun fact.
another fun fact about me. When I was born, my parents named me Jacob Philip Smith, and then my dad's name was Timothy. And so when I was like 6 months old, he just decided, he's like, wait, my firstborn son should have my name. And so they just went and they changed my name and added on Timothy at the beginning. But they always called me Jake, even after they added on the Timothy. And so yeah, so that's how I end up being.
Because I
Yeah,
sent you an email and I'm like, what is the T? So I'm glad I got
yeah,
to ask that. But awesome, great. Thank you so much, Jake, for, spending some time with me, telling me a little bit about what you do, and what you're interested in. And there are lots of, events on campus where I'm sure you're going to come across people who will be very, very interested in the skills that you bring to the table. So I wish you all the best.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
Right.
I'm very happy to be joining UNL. I feel like I fit in here, and yeah, I'm just really
Awesome.
happy to be here and happy to get to talk with you and yeah, kind of share some about myself.
Great, great. All right. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Bye bye.